Yo nerds, and welcome back to Nerds of a Feather. I'm Jaden, and I like video games, if it wasn't apparent already by our logo and so on. Now video games are an art form I love, because they connect with the person viewing them more than any other art form. With a video game, you are directly involved in what happens, and that makes for an experience unlike any other art form can produce. So, I figured to celebrate it, we're going to make a list of top 10 favorite video games. Finn recorded his, and now it's my turn. So what are my favorite video games? Now, a few disclaimers before we start. On screen right now, you'll be seeing some honorable mentions because going straight down into a top 10 is very hard. Additionally, some people make a rule of only having one game per franchise in their list. And I am not going by that rule because I think if a game is good enough to be on the list, then it's on there and that's that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Very few video games have managed to take over the internet like some have. An example of which being Five Nights at Freddy's, which completely conquered everything. We all know how that went, blah blah blah. My pick for number 10 is another one that did just that, and I'm sure that 85% of you are going to hate me for this, but I don't care because I love the game. So number 10 goes to Undertale. So what sets apart Undertale from any other game I've played? For an RPG, it's not very much of your typical RPG. Things are quirky and strange, kind of with an Earthbound feel. But what really sets Undertale apart from any other RPGs is character involvement. You can get involved in the characters in RPGs, that's kind of the point, they still have an overarching story. But with Undertale, you get involvement with the characters as unlike anything else. You can go on dates with them, you can choose to let them live, or you can choose to kill them. Whatever you do, the choice is yours, and whatever experiences you have with the character is completely your choice, which is a sort of freedom that is very rarely seen in an RPG, and is a great experience for anybody that wants to play it. Beyond that, it also helps that it has a pretty expansive world, not necessarily large in scope like Breath of the Wild, but still a very interesting world to explore. And its battle system is also very unique with its bullet hell minigame dodging. So overall, Undertale is an amazing experience I highly recommend anybody check out. At number 9, we have a game that completely split a fan base. One that caused the casuals and the hardcores. One that caused the casuals and the hardcores to butt heads. One that sends some people to not go to sleep at night. And the game I'm talking about is Kirby's Epic Yarn! Kirby's Epic Yarn, to put it simply, is cute. It's a very, 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 very cute game. Look at the Model Ts. Ah, my vocal cords. Now, beyond that, Kirby's Epic Yarn also has a very interesting playstyle, one that completely breaks apart from the Kirby series, and is one that I greatly value. Not to mention the soundtrack is some of the most upbeat and lively songs I've ever heard. A short and sweet section for a short and sweet game. My number 9 is Kirby's Epic Yarn. Now, a game series I've always loved is Super Smash Bros. Well, not always, but for a very long time. I remember when I was about 6, and I would go to my grandma's house, my Aunt Katie would be in there playing Super Smash Bros. Melee on her GameCube. And I'd pick up the controller and think I was playing with her, except I wasn't because she thought I was nitty and I probably was, and so she was beating the crap out of CPUs as Kirby and I thought it was CPUs anyway. But as you saw from the honorable mentions at the beginning of the video, Super Smash Bros. Melee is not on here. I really wanted it to, but there's just one Super Smash Bros. Game that completely overtook it. Well, actually, 2. Super Smash Bros. 4, which refers to both for 3DS and for Wii U, is an amazing collection of games. Now, most people will say, oh yeah, the Wii U version is way better, which it is, but I'm still incredibly impressed by how much they managed to put into the 3DS version, a portable Smash Bros. That's such a cool concept and they managed to execute it so well. Throw in some amazing stages, amazing tracks, and some of the best characters I've ever seen in a fighting game. The DLC selection for Super Smash Bros. 4 is amazing. God bless. In short, Super Smash Bros. 4 is an amazing, fun experience for anybody who wants to hop into a fighting game or wants to go into it competitively. and it makes for some of the funnest gameplay I've ever played.
Hashtag Shovel Knight for Smash.
How did you get in here? Moving on. I love RPGs. I'm not completely into them. I don't know everything about every RPG ever. You can't tell me anything about Final Fantasy VII because I have no idea what goes on there. But the RPGs I've played are all amazing, incredible games. And one of them is a classic, one that very many people have heard of. And it's Chrono Trigger for this SNES. Where Chrono Trigger really strives of its story. A lot of RPGs follow story, of course, that's the point of an RPG. But the plot that Chrono Trigger manages to weave is incredible, especially with its time traveling mechanics and being able to go into the past and that affects what happens in the future, which of course is what happens in time travel, but it's a cool mechanic nevertheless. Throwing some amazing fights with some amazing mechanics and some of the most interesting character interactions. They don't have some of the most interesting character reactions, let me rethink that part. And some very memorable characters that you will definitely grow attached to. Chrono Trigger is a classic, a one that I highly recommend any RPG and any Nintendo fan play. It is a game that spanned across time. And yes, that was a pun. Oh yeah, I forgot which one's my number 6.
I did it! I saved the world!
A lot of indie games these days have been focusing on nostalgia. Nostalgia is a very tricky thing to tackle, because people played different games when they grew up, and having that nostalgic feel can be hard to span across everybody. But one era of gaming that should never be forgotten is the classic platformers, and there's one indie game which I feel replicates that perfectly, and that is Shovel Knight. I could go on for hours about how great Shovel Knight is, but first I'm going to go about its gameplay. Shovel Knight's gameplay is incredible. Everything is fast and fluid and has actions that you would think would be in a classic video game. You got your Scrooge McDuck, Pogo Hop, and relics that you can find from different stages like in the classic Mega Man game or in Castlevania. The entire gameplay feels like a love letter to old games. And if you ever die in Shovel Knight, it's your fault. Every level is designed so precisely that there's nothing that's very cheap about the game. And then you get to its graphics. It's 8-bit, so of course it's not as detailed as most games would be these days, but its color palette is gorgeous and has some amazing sprite animation. Couple that with a soundtrack by Jake Kaufman, who is one of the greatest composers for indie games these days, and you have a game that spans across time, except I already used that line, so I'm going to rethink what I just said. I don't get it. And you have a perfect game that can appeal to both fans of classic platformers and to new players to this day. And then you get into Plague Knight's campaign, and then Spectre Knight's campaign, and at the time of this recording, King's Knight campaign is on the way. And each of them is like its own unique game, and all of them are almost better than the last. It is an amazing collection of games I highly recommend anybody pick up, regardless of who you are. You're going to love it. Makes it sound like I'm doing an advertisement. We aren't sponsored. Like Super Smash Bros., there's another game series I have followed for a very long time and I love with almost all of my heart. And that is the Kirby series. And now say what you will about its art style and how cute it is and oh, Kirby's an easy game. Yeah, shut up, it's still a good game series. And recently, with the release of Kirby's Return to Dreamland, everything has increased with quality from there. Now, I haven't played Kirby Planet Robobot yet, which is honestly a huge shame, and I really should pick it up soon. But the one in the Kirby 3DS game that I have picked up is Kirby Triple Deluxe. And oh man, where do I begin? Where do I begin? Where should I begin?
Oh my god, what is that?
For one thing, its art style is gorgeous. Now, I've said this about Kirby's Epic Art, and I will say it about Kirby games in the future, I'm sure. But Kirby Triple Deluxe is some of the greatest color palette I've seen for a 3DS game and some of the greatest animations I've seen for it as well. And just that all the copy abilities are great. All of them are fluid and fast and allows you to mow through enemies with ease. Another thing that really makes the game for me is music, as you noticed. And the Kirby Triple Deluxe soundtrack is also phenomenal. with plenty of upbeat tracks as well as some serious ones when it comes to the boss battles. If you're looking to hop into modern Kirby, Kirby Triple Deluxe is definitely the place to start. With some of the greatest gameplay of any Kirby game and some of the greatest visuals of any Kirby game, it is a game that's hard to put down and one I'll be playing for a very long time. Now I'm just going to say what game this is right off the bat. My number 4 pick is Super Mario Galaxy 2. Now you're probably thinking, well Jaden, why didn't you put in Super Mario Galaxy? What did it do like 2 didn't? Well guess what? I haven't played the first Galaxy. Yes, I know, it's a shame, whatever. But I will say that I love Galaxy 2. It has some of the greatest gameplay of any Mario game. And personally, I think it has the greatest gameplay of any 3D Mario game. Unless of course Odyssey comes out and just topples it over. All the galaxies in the game are unique. At least in Galaxy 2, I don't know anything about Galaxy. Further all ripoffs. But, in the case of Galaxy 2, all of them are unique and fun and bring something completely new to the table. And couple that with the fact that you can ride Yoshi, which is an instant yes in my book. And some of the greatest orchestration for any soundtrack. Seriously, Nintendo just hits everything right on the head of the nail. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a game that I spent hours trying to get all 120 stars on, which I still haven't, which I should probably go do. Anyway. Yikes, I'm awful at these transitions.
Grommet this! Grommet that!
Super Mario Galaxy 2 isn't a masterpiece of a game, but it is a very beautiful game, and one that I won't forget for a very long time. Except I feel like I already said something similar to that, so I had to figure that out.
The f does Grommet mean?
It's a very beautiful game, and it's very easy to get lost in it for hours at a time, just like in space.
Bow.
Ground control, Major Tom! Now, as I mentioned before, RPGs are one of my favorite genres of games, and they have some of the greatest games I've played. But there is one game... Actually, it wasn't the game that got me into the RPG genre, never mind, cut that.
How about we book a room at the Oto Hotel and have a nice nap?
Now, as I mentioned before, RPGs are a genre that center on their story. The complex characters, the complex world, all of it comes together to form a narrative that's unlike any other video game genre. So how did one of my favorite RPGs come out of the Mario series? Now, you're probably trying to decide between Mario Luigi or Paper Mario for which one this is going to be. And I will give it to you that both of them are amazing game series. But this one, nostalgia just kind of takes over. My number 3 pick is Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. Now you're probably thinking, oh Jaden, you chose a nostalgic pick for the DS? What is this bull hunky? I'm young. That is all. But beyond that, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story isn't just a nostalgia game, it's also an incredible game. Easily the best in the Mario & Luigi series, for very many different reasons. For one, the gameplay is amazing, as you would expect from a Mario game. The whole countering attacks while being in the battle is a great mechanic that brings a whole lot of variety to every battle they go up against. No boss fight is the same, especially with all the different attacks that you have to counter. Both playing as Mario and Luigi is a blast, especially with their bros attacks. But Bowser is also a blast to play with, his punching and fire breath and all of his minion attacks. And beyond that, the story is surprisingly deep and can get pretty dark at some points. But of course, this is put off by the humorous nature of Mario games. Thoughtful as it may be, like, completely steals the show. He is hilarious, and when you couple him with Bowser, everything becomes amazing. Every character encounter can be played off of for laughs. Mario and Luigi games have always had their humor up high, especially starting with Superstar Saga, but Bowser's Inside Story definitely takes it to a new high. And couple this with an amazing game soundtrack. Yes, I've said this before, and I'll probably say it about multiple games again. But Bowser's Inside Story also has an incredible soundtrack made by the same person that did Kingdom Hearts, so yes, bless. Bowser's Inside Story is almost a perfect package, and one game I could only wish to have as one of my first introductions into the RPG series. Now this one has a bit of a story behind it. So when my sister and I were first getting into video games, my mother said that we had to start with the old systems and then move up into the new ones. So at the time, the Wii was popular, but we didn't have the Wii for a long time. We started off with the NES, and then led into the SNES, and then the PlayStation 2 for some reason, don't know why that was there, and then into the Wii. Now, as you can imagine, the NES and SNES era has some very nostalgic games for me, which is a bit awkward, especially because some of my other nostalgic games are on the DS, but whatever. And one of the most nostalgic games for me, and one of the greatest games I've ever played, despite it being out on the SNES, is Super Mario World. Now, I'm sure you've heard Super Mario World's praises sung to the heavens a billion times by now, but by God, I will sing, because I love Super Mario World with a passion. Super Mario World has some of the greatest gameplay of any platformer ever, period, hands down. It rivals Shovel Knight in that department. Beyond that, the game is goofy, fun, colorful, lively, everything's dancing, everything's goofy. I already said goofy.
Not a brave enough boy for this!
And beyond that, there's a surprising amount of depth in the game. Now, this is a platformer, so of course you go through levels and hop on things and use power-ups and all that jazz. But there's a lot of secrets to be discovered in the game, an entire star world followed by an entire special world of special stages for you to play, which allows you to play for hours and hours without stop. I remember the first time we beat the special world, and just the amazing feeling that filled all of us when my mother, my sister, and I sat and we watched the entire world turn to autumn, which granted is not a very cool accomplishment for being the special world, but at the same time, it was still a mark of the accomplishment we had over such a huge game and such a nostalgic game. I have too many memories of Super Mario World, and that's why it's my number 2. Now this pick, my number 1 is, of course, has to be my favorite video game. That's how the list works. It's a game chosen both because of its gameplay and because of nostalgic memory. One of the most nostalgic games I've ever played. Now, what game could this be, you might ask? This game is Pokemon Soul Silver. Yes, I know, I'm hopping back onto the DS for nostalgia, but I just can't help it. Pokemon Soul Silver is the first RPG game I ever played. You know, it's the first Pokemon game I ever played. Now, I still consider myself a very, very big fan of Pokemon. I love Pokemon, and I think the entire series is great. But Pokemon Soul Silver sent me into an obsession with the series that lasted for about 5 years. That was basically all I could ever talk about was Pokemon. All I could ever play with my sister, make-believe Pokemon battles. That's all we could do. Well, because she wanted to do other things, it was just me, because I was a selfish brat.
Did you just say shellfish?
Selfish brat.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
But beyond that, Pokemon Soul Silver is still an amazing game. The Pokemon that you start off with at the beginning will be your friend by the end. And especially with the walking with your Pokemon mechanic and having them evolve with max happiness. Everything just becomes real, and you become connected with your Pokemon. You love your Pokemon. I love my Pokemon, and that's why the entire Cyndaquil line is still my favorite Pokemon. You can just pluck any of them out, and it's my favorite. I remember breaking through Team Rocket's headquarters, and loving the outfit that was on it, and that was why I took a photo with it. I remember facing the Elite Four for this first time, and failing miserably, because my Typhlosion and my Lugia are level 50, and all the other Pokemon are level 30, and that's not a good idea if you're going to the Elite Four. I remember the first time I got to the Kanto region and I faced Red, and Red is such an amazing battle, and everything is amazing, and I just remember everything with such a fondness. Maybe the game isn't that great. If I'd played the game today, I mean I still would have liked it. It's an amazing Pokemon game, gameplay wise, but I probably wouldn't love it as much as I do. So maybe I just have my big old nostalgia goggles on. These aren't goggles, they're glasses, but you get the idea. Maybe the entire thing is just shrouded in a cloud of nostalgia, but I don't care. Pokemon Soul Silver is the best game I've ever played. And it remains my favorite video game of all time. So that's it for my top 10 favorite video games. If you'd like to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe, watch our other videos, and all of that fancy jazz. This is Jaden from Nerds of a Feather, signing out.